Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this presentation. I am Maria Luiza. I am a nurse midwife, and I'm a professor of the University of São Paulo here in Brazil. My presentation is about strategies for perineal trauma prevention, but I am talking about the perineal trauma we classified as episiotomy and spontaneous tears, according to the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, that may be classified as first, second, third, and fourth degree. And the third degree tears may be classified as 3A, 3B, and 3C, according you can read. But when you talk about perineal trauma prevention, we also may think about when we can prevent and we may prevent during pregnancy, during childbirth, in professional education, and promoting women's health and self-care. In this presentation, my focus is on during pregnancy, during labor. In all these situations, we are in a field of controversies, and it's worth asking. Is there a pelvic floor villain? Ought or would the pregnancy, the vaginal birth, the professional who attends the birth, the childbirth interventions? Independent if there is or not a villain, we are sure that professionals and women are seeking information and alternatives in order to improve safety and effectiveness of perineal care during pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum, to prevent severe perineal trauma during childbirth, and to reduce its consequences on sexual function and urinary and anal incontinence. Then, how to prevent perineal trauma during childbirth? Sure, implementing best practices to promote the physiology of birth and avoid maternal and fetal stress, such as eating and drinking during labor, promoting mobility during labor, using non-pharmacological pain relief, adopting companion of women's choice, support and continue care during labor, and avoiding practices that on cascade affect on perineal integrity, such as augmentation, used routinely with synthetic oxytocin, and amniotomy, the supine and electrotomic position, directed pushing, crystalline maneuver, that's a uterine fundal pressure, instrumental birth, and episiotomy. Perhaps avoiding these practices, we are protecting perineum from these traumas. Then, considering the effectiveness of the following tactics during the second stage of labor, I will report some recommendations of the NICE, that is the National Institute for Care, Health and Care Excellence of the UK. This last guideline that is updating now report these techniques and discuss and do recommendations concerning these strategies. Here in Brazil, we don't have a national guideline updated. We adopt nationally by the Minister of Health, a guideline suggested by the Minister of Health that has about 18 years, that is 18 years old. I will report something about perineal massage, warm compresses, hand position during childbirth, pushing, and episiotomy. Considering that the last presentation reported about maternal position. Considering perineal massage, warm compresses, and hands position, we can see by this study is a RCT that compared the perineal management techniques. These techniques, massage with lubricant, warm compresses, and hand-off technique, in the second stage of labor to determine its effectiveness in reducing perineal trauma. All groups were composed by 1,200 women, distributed in massage, warm compresses, and hands-off groups. The use of perineal massage with lubricant, warm compresses, or hands-off does not increase or decrease the overall rates of perineal trauma. Stratified analysis and the adjusted relative risk controlling for parity epidural usage also showed no differences between study groups. A final regression model demonstrated two care measures that were protective for perineal trauma: maternal seat position and birth of fetal head between the contractions, rather than during the contractions. In 2011, the Cochrane Systematic Review conducted to investigate the effect of perineal techniques during second stage of labor on the incidence of perineal traumas, considering two trials and 2,147 women, concluded that there was a significant effect towards favoring massage versus hand-off to reduce third and fourth degree tears. And the authors comments that the question of how to prevent the tears is complicated and involves many other factors in addition to the perineal techniques, such as birth position, woman's tissue, speed of birth. More research is necessary in this field to evaluate perineal techniques and also to answer the questions to determinants of perineal trauma. Concerning to perineal massage, RCT conducted in Australia investigated the effects of perineal massage in the second stage of labor among 1,340 women. In the experimental group, women received perineal massage by a midwife during each contractions in the second stage of labor. There was no significant difference between the experimental and the control group for the following outcomes: perineal integrity, first and second degrees, and episiotomy. There was a difference on the incidence of third-degree tears, with this being less frequent in the group, in the massage group. Although the trial was underpowered to detect a statistically significant difference for this outcome. Then, considering these studies, the nice recommendation in the draft version do not perform perineal massage in the second stage of labor. Concerning the other strategy, the warm compresses, the same Cochrane review include 2 trials with 1,525 women, and notes that there was a significant effect of warm compresses on reduction of 3rd and 4th degree tears. Nevertheless, the observational cohort study, it's a classical study, it's an old study, but it's a classical study, investigate the perineal care measures that were associated with perineal trauma during childbirth with more than 2,500 women. And the application of warm compresses to the perineum was during the 2nd stage of labor and was protective against spontaneous tears for nulliparous women and multiparous women. For episiotomy, for women, nulliparous women, but for multiparous, the findings are of borderline significance. But the NICE guidelines do not recommend anything concerning this strategy. The other strategy we can adopt is the hand position during the birth of the baby, during the delivery of the head of the baby. The same review included 3 trials with 6,500 women and concluded that the hands-off maneuver versus hand-on maneuver showed no effect on spontaneous tears, but it was observed a significant effect of hands-off on reduced rate of episiotomy. It seems that when the midwife don't put her hands over the perineum, there are less episiotomies. This other study concluded concerning the hands-on, hands-off, that the rate of first and second degree perineal trauma was similar for the 2 groups. There was a higher rate of 3rd degree trauma on the hands-on group, and the study do not detect different related to this point. Women in the hands-on group were more likely to have an episiotomy like the previous study. I think I must go fast, yes. The nice recommendation for this point is that either the hands-on guarding the perineum and flexing the baby's head, or hands poised with hands off the perineum and baby's head. Techniques can be used to facilitate spontaneous birth. I saw this paper published this year from Sweden. The authors are proposing the device for protecting the commissura, the forecat, and concluded that the perineal protective device significantly reduced the incidence of first and second degree tears in the vagina and perineum, and also significantly decreased of the number of women with fully intact, increased the number of intact perineum. And no significant reduction of the ISR, and no negative effects on the device were observed. Concerning the pushing, I will read the evidence statement of NICE. There is no high-level evidence that directed depushing affects the outcomes of perineum. Concerning the episiotomy, I think something was presented in the first presentation, is very well established that the episiotomy conduct restrictive has best outcomes for perineum, and without another study concerning the angle of the episiotomy discuss the importance to okay, I finished my presentation. Thank you very much.